So in this episode, we're going to be reviewing Come to Daddy. Let's get started. Now before we begin, I want to point out a couple of things before you all go rushing down to the comment section. First off, I will not be doing a picture or sound quality review on this because the screener was basically in 720p and then up converted to 4K by my television. So unless I have a sound 4K disc, I will not do a picture and sound quality review. Number two, this is not a slasher horror movie. There's not meant to be gallons filled of blood and gore and jump scares throughout. This is a psychological thriller slash horror movie. Now, psychological thrillers are meant to mess with you psychologically. There's a lot of character development, there's a lot of substance. The cinematography, the score all play a vital role in this into creating an overall psychological environment for an hour and a half to 2.5 hours. So, with all that said, I just want to let you all know that this is one of the greatest, yes, one of the best psychological thriller movies I have seen in a very, very long time. Now, with all that said, the way that this review is going to be conducted is it will be done in two parts. The first part will be spoiler-free, and of course, then there'll be a little intermission, so you know where the break is, and it will be followed up with spoilers. That also gives you time during the intermission to turn it off or decide on whether or not you want to continue. And when I say spoilers, I'm not going to ruin the whole movie. I'm not going to do that, especially since the movie isn't out yet. What I'm going to do is there will be basically review comments that may contain spoilers in them, such as talking about each act or things that may happen, but nothing too detrimental to watching the film. You'll be able to watch it and still not know what the hell is going on, I promise you. It'll still keep you guessing. I'm not going to ruin it for you either way. Now, with all that said, let's get started with the review. Now, Come to Daddy is directed by Ant Timpson, who also directed movies such as The ABCs of Death and The Field Guide to Evil. The screenplay was done by Toby Harvard, who hasn't really done a whole lot, but did a very damn good job with the screenplay for Come to Daddy. And Come to Daddy will be released on Friday, February 7th. And before we begin this review, I want to let you know that if you like psychological movies, regardless if it's horror or thriller or suspense, then you need to go see this movie. This movie delivers on every aspect of a psychological movie, especially the psychological thriller genre. Now, right off the bat, the acting was phenomenal. Stephen McHattie, I'm probably butchering the hell out of that name. His performance just has this deep, creepy vibe throughout the entire first act of the movie, and he executes every scene with precision and tension. This actor pulled this off so flawlessly and so perfectly. The acting alone was just phenomenal. And then of course you have Elijah Wood, who plays Norvell Greenwood, who also does a phenomenal job in his roles. I think a lot of people tend to write off Elijah Wood in a lot of things because he's very repetitive in his acting. They say that he's just playing himself. He's not much of a method actor. Well, a lot of people aren't method actors, so you gotta keep that in mind. But Elijah Wood plays this role perfectly. Between the crooked bowl cut and the pedo mustache, I'm telling you, he gives off the creepiest damn vibe. And when you combine these two actors and those elements, they have an amazing chemistry together. Their little creepy ass tension vibes just play off of each other so flawlessly. It is just awesome to watch in the first quarter of this film. And if I was gonna rate the acting of this movie, I'd basically give it about an 8 out of 10. Yeah, it was that good. Now, a lot of people rate things based on, well, this actor was horrible, and this actor was okay, but this actor was great. And you can't really look at it on an independent kind of thing when you're rating an overall movie for acting. You have to look at the overall chemistry. Because you could take one of the worst actors in Hollywood and one of the best actors in Hollywood and put them together, and if they have the perfect chemistry, the acting will be phenomenal. So the way that this chemistry worked and the acting overall, seriously, just really damn good. It was about an 8 out of 10. But now let's get on to cinematography. Now, the cinematography was really damn good. There was nothing but tension after tension and suspense and creepiness in every single shot. It didn't matter on whether or not they were sitting on the porch during the daytime or if they were alone in a bedroom at night. Every single scene had nothing but tension. Now, Daniel Katz did a brilliant job with the cinematography. It was very well done, nice and creepy in every scene. And again, the tension is unreal because you got to remember, in a psychological thriller movie, every scene has to have tension and mess with you psychologically. Otherwise, it's nothing really psychological about it. And the cinematography did just that. Absolutely amazing. I would give the actual cinematography and the way the tension was in a psychological thriller mindset, I would give it a 9 out of 10. It was almost perfection. Just amazing. And again, one of the best psychological thrillers I have seen in a very long time, heavily influenced by the cinematography. Very well done. But now, let's get on to our next section. Blood and gore. Now, I know by reading the comment section a lot from my movie reviews that a lot of my subscribers are more interested in the blood and gore than anything else. Now, the blood and gore is there, all right? The makeup is there. The brilliance of some of these scenes is there. But when it comes to the amount of blood, there's nothing in this movie that you're really gonna fill up oil drums with, right? It's not like some elevator scene from The Shining where the blood is just pouring down a hallway. There's nothing like that because, again, this isn't a slasher horror movie. It's not meant to be filled with blood and nonstop action. I know a lot of people have this thing where with Marvel, they're expecting things like bright colors and a lot of action, and now they want this in horror movies and everything else to keep their attention. But you gotta remember, psychological thrillers aren't like that. They're not filled with bright colors and nonstop action. They actually have substance. There's actually a story arc. There's character development. There's suspense. There's thrills. There is gore. It is there, but it doesn't really come out till the final act. Yeah, we're going to get to that in the spoiler section. That this movie is basically done in 3 acts. And the 3rd act is where the gore comes into place. And when I say gore comes into place, I'm not talking about, again, oil drums filled with blood or hallways pouring at and drowning you in blood. What I'm referring to is the special effects, the uniqueness of kills, the uniqueness of gore and blood and special effects. And yes, there is blood. But let me tell you something. The uniqueness with these kills is incredible. I would give it about an 8 out of 10 just on the uniqueness alone, only because the uniqueness is there. However, you could see similar things in other movies, but not done in this way. And you just really aren't expecting some of the stuff to occur, especially with the makeup. Now, some of the makeup scenes, you don't really think anything's happening, and then boom, the camera angle shifts and you see something. It's just crazy. When you talk about, again, psychological movies, this movie kind of screws with you psychologically, and it plays the whole psychological arc, which Elijah Wood's company SpectreVision is kind of known for by now due to their last video game that they released. That was a very psychological-esque style video game. And it seems like he's more into these psychological style movies and games now than he is anything else. And this movie, I think it nailed the psychological aspect. But let's get back to the gore, okay? Gore and blood, again, nothing to fill up oil drums with, and the blood is there. Final act, you have to wait for the final act. The first 2 acts, nothing. It builds up. The tension builds up. The suspense builds up. They all build up. And when that 3rd act hits, everything comes to play. You get all those great unique scenes, you get all the great blood, you get all the gore, you get everything that you're waiting for. Again, if you're expecting oil drum-filled blood and, elevator shafts filled with blood, it's not what this is. I can't explain this enough, and I know as much as I'm explaining it, there are going to be a few that go down the comment section and be like, well, there wasn't enough blood and gore. That's not the point of a psychological movie, regardless, even if it's a psychological horror movie. That's not the point of it. It's mainly driven by substance of the movie, right? Not by how much murder and death and kills or action there is. So we have to keep that in mind. And with that in mind, yeah, the blood, the gore, the special effects are all there. You just have to let it build up. Let the tension build up. If you remember The Dark Knight, the score and how that movie just built up tension and gave you a bit of explosion of an ending. Well, it's kind of like that, but not as big. Okay, you gotta remember The Dark Knight was a big blockbuster cinematic film where this is, again, a psychological thriller. Big difference there, but it does deliver for what it is. Trust me, I promise you the last act of this movie is worth it. So go see this movie, check it out. It is worth every single minute. I love this movie. And I know I was looking at other people's reviews online because other people got this movie early to review and they're giving it like 6 and 7s and out of 10. And I think you got to base it, again, you can't base it compared to like an action movie or a drama movie or a horror movie. You have to base it on psychological thriller movie. Okay, and again, in the aspect of psychological thrillers, if you're a big psychological thriller fan, I would just buy it. I wouldn't even rent it. I would go see it in the theater, but I'd also buy it when it comes out. Because as a psychological thriller, it's in my top 6 for sure. Absolutely amazing psychological thriller. Now, if I have to rate this movie overall, I'm gonna have to safely maybe give this a 7 out of 10. It was really good. Again, I'm not like putting this on a comparison rating of like Godfather 2 or anything. Keep that in mind. As a psychological thriller, it is a 7 out of 10. Solid freaking movie. You will not be disappointed if this is your style genre. If this is your style genre, you're gonna absolutely love it. Go see it in the theater. I promise you, you will not hate it. Now, with all that said, let's get to the final part that everybody has been waiting for.
Come on, take a stroll to the snack bar.
Yes, that's right, the spoiler section of the review. Now, if you didn't go ahead and leave during the intermission and you don't want any type of spoilers, no matter how small they are, I'm gonna go ahead and give you about 3 seconds to leave right now. So before we begin the spoiler section of this review, I want to let you all know that no, there is no drastic or major spoilers that I'm going to give out that it's going to ruin this movie in any way, shape, or form. The reason I'm calling this the spoiler section of the review is because we're going to talk about this movie in 3 acts, which isn't going to go on for very long. It might be 5 or 6 minutes, if even that. Because again, I don't want to ruin the movie for anybody whatsoever. It will ruin the entire psychological experience of the movie. So with that said, yes, there are 3 acts that I have basically chop this movie down to, and they are all done differently. Again, I'm going to spend about a minute on each act. I'm not going to give away any major, huge spoilers to ruin the movie because I don't want to ruin the movie in any way, shape, or form, even if you don't care about spoilers. So, with all that said, let's talk about Act 1. Now, in Act 1, we're basically just simply introduced to 2 characters, and these 2 characters have a whole bunch of tension. Throughout the entire first act, it is nothing but tension. We're trying to get introduced to these characters, find out who they are, get kind of a foundation on them, and basically everything we thought we knew in the trailer stops in Act 1, because after Act 1, the whole movie changes. Which brings us to Act 2. Now, Act 2, we begin to unravel some of the secrets, and it is just a psychological mind fuck. You don't know what the hell's going on. You don't know if something's real. You don't know if something's fake. And he starts uncovering a whole bunch of secrets. Now, I'm not going to tell you which character is uncovering a whole bunch of secrets because that would just ruin everything. However, keep in mind that in Act 2, we start getting a whole lot of changes from Act 1 because Act 1, again, was more of just like an introductory of characters that had a whole bunch of tension leading up to an explosive end of the first act, which then brought us into that second act, which is now unraveling all the secrets, and we're starting to really find out what's going on in this movie and who these characters actually are. Which brings us to Act 3. And in the final act, there's a whole bunch of creepy twists and turns along the way, and everything that you thought you predicted doesn't necessarily come true. Now, a lot of the stuff in this final act, you're not going to predict. You think you're going to predict, but you don't. You end up not predicting most of this stuff. And the final act is actually where all the blood and gore come into play and all those cool, awesome makeup and special effects that we're going to end up seeing. This is the final act, and it actually delivers on every aspect. All the tension that was built up through the first 2 acts to get us to the final act are there. The explosiveness is there. And now the ending in itself is going to keep a lot of you wondering what the hell happened, but I can't actually talk about that, and I can't put a video on explaining the ending to Come to Daddy until after the movie comes out in the theater, which it comes out on Friday, February 7th. Now, with all that said, what your thoughts are down in the comment section below. Do you think that this sounds interesting? You can go see this movie on February 7th. Also, if you're new here, hit the subscribe button, hit notification box. If you don't, you know if I have kick-ass shit such as this. And be sure to give this video a big thumbs up because 150 likes on this video will get you another movie review on this channel. Also, don't forget, if you enjoyed this channel and want to see videos be made for years to come, then you probably want to become a paying member today because, well, YouTube no longer wants to help me with advertisements on my channels due to finding all these loopholes when it comes to horror and gameplay or discussing horror. Yeah, they don't want to support anything anymore. So it's actually coming down to my subscribers and how much they donate or how many members there are. And all that money 100% goes right back into this channel. And don't forget to join us at theslasherclub.com, where you'll be able to get all this news 1 week early. And as always, I'll see you next time. So in this episode, we're going to be reviewing Come. So in this episode, we're going to be reviewing Come. So in this episode, we're going to be reviewing Come. We're going to be reviewing Come. Gurgle, gurgle.